Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome to our New Testament challenge. I'm going to share with you some thoughts and reflections on the fourth chapter of the Gospel of Luke. I pray that you will enjoy these thoughts. We're now, like I said, into the third of the four Gospels, so a lot of this will sound similar to what we've read before, but that's part of the fun of this. A lot of the stories in the Gospels are similar to each other, but some of the details are slightly different. For instance, here at the beginning of chapter 4, we have the temptation of Jesus. And listen to some of the language here. In Mark, we get all of 3 verses that talks about the temptation. Luke, we get a good bit more. Here, this is interesting. In Matthew, Jesus is driven. There's a different verb there, driven by the Spirit into the wilderness. Here, it says Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, returned from the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Again, kind of a different term, different understanding of what's going on there. And said, for 40 days he was tempted by the devil. And so it shows, we hear all 3 of the temptations that the devil lays to him. Picks him up, and then when the devil had finished every test, he departed from Jesus until an opportune time. And then he begins his Galilean ministry. He goes out and to teach in the hillsides. Then he comes back home to Nazareth, to his hometown, and he goes and he speaks, and he talks about, when he's there on the Sabbath, he's given the scroll of Isaiah, and he scrolls it down, and he gets to the point where it says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to bring good news to the poor, to proclaim release to captives, recovery of sight to the blind, and let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Okay, familiar passage for many. It kind of exciting. I like this. And he sat down, and they all leaned forward, and he says, "Today this has been fulfilled." And people were amazed. They were like, "Oh wow, he really knows what he's talking about. This is exciting." And they go through it, and you can just see how the conversation went. They were amazed at what he said and how he said it. And then there was someone probably at some point in time, looked at him and said, "Isn't that Joe's boy? Isn't that Mary's son?" And as they talk about that, they said, "Doubtless you will quote to yourself, doctor, cure yourself." Or, we want to see all these other miracles that you've been doing all over the place. And that's when he said, prophets are not welcome in their hometown. And he mentions how Elijah went to someone else, and how Elisha, again, neither one of them went to the Israelites. And he just kind of threw it in their faces. And this just really ticked people off. And so it goes from, wow, we're so proud of Joe and Mary's son, and he's so smart, and then all of a sudden he's blaspheming. Let's throw him off the cliff. And as they tried to get him there, he slipped away and went on to another town. He went down to Capernaum and was teaching there on the Sabbath, and he cleansed a man of an unclean demon, and the demon knew who he was. He says, "Leave us alone. What have you to do with us? I know who you are, Holy One of God." And Jesus told him to be quiet and to get out of him. And everybody's like, "We've never seen this type of thing before." He rebukes demons, rebukes spirits with power, and they listen to him. And so word began to spread. Now, that same type of thing happened in the other Gospels. In Mark, he's constantly saying, "Shh, don't tell anybody. Shh, don't tell anybody. Keep it a secret." Here, the secret's blown. It's out. And we will hear more of that. And so after he left the synagogue, he went to Simon's house, and there he healed Simon's mother. And there was another, he laid his hands on other sick and other demons, and they all kept shouting, "You are the Son of God." But he rebuked them and would not allow them to speak, because they already knew he was the Messiah. Now, this is interesting. We understand Messiah to mean Son of God and Son of God to mean Messiah. But back then, that was it was more like a Son of God, not the Son of God. And so many people, were talking. It was a kind of a reference to a holy person or to a rabbi. That is a Son of God. And so they did not make the correlation, but the demons knew exactly who he was, which is interesting because how can someone reject Christ that knew who he was? This shows that they can, because there's, it will cause obviously a lot of discomfort for them. But there are people who, will look and see, and they'll make the decision not to follow, even though they know exactly who Jesus is. Again, that comes back to us. It's our decision whether we believe or not. And then he goes and preaches. He went and he departed and went into deserted places. The crowds kept following him, and they wanted him to prevent him from leaving. They said, "We want you to stay." They wanted something for themselves. And he says, I got to proclaim the good news to everywhere else. And so he continued, and he left that area of the countryside, and he went on to new places. And so it's just kind of interesting how that happened, and how in Luke early on there were crowds, and he had to deal with that type of thing. So hope this is helpful, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.